Is the ham in your fridge even made from Australian pork anymore? What if I told you that 75% of the ham and bacon sold in Australian supermarkets is made from imported pork? That the country of origin label showing a kangaroo can legally appear on products containing just 10% Australian ingredients? And that Australia's largest ham producer was fined over $400,000 for labelling imported pork as Australian? I spent weeks researching ownership structures, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission enforcement actions, and food recalls. Let me take you through the 6 specific brands you need to avoid. Number 1, Primo. Primo is Australia's largest producer of ham, bacon, and small goods. But in 2014, JBS acquired Primo for $1.45 billion. In 2017, JBS executives, including billionaire brothers Wesley and Josley Batista, admitted to bribing more than 1,800 politicians in Brazil and paid a record $3.2 billion fine, the largest corporate leniency deal in Brazilian history. According to ABC Four Corners, JBS used funds from loans secured through bribery to finance its expansion into Australia. JBS has been repeatedly linked to Amazon deforestation. A 2021 audit found that nearly a third of the cattle purchased by JBS came from areas with deforestation issues. In 2024, New York Attorney General Letitia James sued them for misleading consumers about environmental commitments. But here is something even more damning for Australian consumers. In 2010, Primo was fined $233,000 plus $200,000 in costs, the largest food labelling fine ever in New South Wales. Their crime was labelling imported Danish and Canadian pork as product of Australia. Then in 2015, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission found Primo had been labelling pork as free range when the pigs from Denmark had actually been confined to roofed enclosures with slatted floors.
Number 2, Hans. Hans might look like a separate brand, but JBS acquired Hans as part of the Primo deal. Same Brazilian owner, same corruption scandal, same history of deceptive labelling. When you see Hans and Primo next to each other on the shelf, you are not seeing competition. You are seeing 2 brands owned by the same multinational whose executives confessed to massive bribery. Before we continue, many of you have asked for a simple way to make better choices at the supermarket without having to memorize all of this information. I have created a practical guide you can use every day to avoid these traps and pick the best options for your family. The link is in the pinned comment. I cannot promise how long I will be able to keep that link active. Big brands have been pressuring me. They want to take down my videos. I have been receiving strange emails and phone calls every single day. Some of these calls genuinely scare me, but I will not stop. I love Australia above everything else. If you want the guide, grab it now while you can. Now let us continue. Number 3, Don. Don has been synonymous with ham in Australia since 1947, but Don is owned by George Weston Foods, a subsidiary of Associated British Foods, headquartered in London. When you buy Don thinking you are supporting an Australian icon, your money flows to the United Kingdom. The factory that made Don famous in Altona North was closed in 2011. Hundreds of workers lost their jobs. George Weston Foods generates approximately $800 million annually from its Don and KR Castlemaine division. That money flows to British shareholders. Number 4, KR Castlemaine. KR Castlemaine has been producing ham since 1911 and is owned by the same British company as Don. In 2015, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission accepted court enforceable undertakings from George Weston Foods Trading as KR Castlemaine. They had been using the phrase bread free range on packaging since 2008, but the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission found this was misleading because the pigs were not able to move freely in outdoor paddocks. So KR Castlemaine is British owned and was caught misleading consumers about animal welfare, just like Primo. Number 5, Coles branded ham. Coles sells ham under its own brand and the labelling has shocked consumers. One shopper found their Coles bacon stated made in Australia from less than 10% Australian ingredients, with pork from Europe. When you see the Australian logo with the kangaroo on a product, do you ever read the fine print? Most people do not. The fine print often reveals the only Australian ingredient is water and preservatives. The Victorian Farmers Federation Pig Group President John Burke challenged Coles publicly. He pointed out that while Coles makes Australian farmers undergo strict audits for sow stall-free practices, Coles refuses to prove their imports meet the same standards. Denmark, Canada, and the United States still use sow stalls. What evidence does Coles have that these imports come from sow stall-free piggeries? He said he repeatedly asked Coles to prove it had the audit trail in place. Their response so far has been to fob him off. The consumer group Choice found Coles ham scored just 58% in blind tasting, the worst of the major supermarkets 2 years running.
Number 6. Woolworths branded ham. Woolworths is no better than Coles when it comes to imported pork. A Woolworths spokesperson confirmed the company uses imported pork in house brand products. A consumer nominated Woolworths Middle Bacon for a Shonky Award because the label said made in Australia from 18% Australian ingredients, while the ingredients list showed pork at 90%. How can a product be 90% pork but only 18% Australian? The maths only works if the pork is imported. The Australian part is just water, salt, and processing. Australian Pork Limited research shows 76% of consumers thought they were buying Australian pork when they saw the kangaroo logo. They were wrong. 56% of consumers remain completely unaware that ham made in Australia could be made using imported pork. Yet 69% say they would prefer to buy Australian if they knew the difference. The supermarkets know this, and they exploit the confusion. So what should you actually buy? First, look for the pink PorkMark logo. This guarantees 100% Australian pork. Second, buy ham on the bone. Australian Pork Limited says if it is on the bone, it is one of our own. Biosecurity laws prevent importing pork with bone attached. Third, check the bar chart on the label. For Australian ham, it should show over 90%. 10 to 30% means imported pork. Fourth, support genuine Australian family businesses. Sonia is a Western Australian family-owned company since 1949. They employ approximately 800 people, and some products use 100% Australian pork. Bertocchi is another Australian family business from Victoria since 1972. Their gold range uses Australian pork. Tibaldi is family-owned since 1934, and their signature ham uses 100% Australian pork leg. Fifth, visit your local butcher. They can tell you exactly where their ham comes from. How to identify quality ham? Check the country of origin bar chart. 90% or higher means Australian. Look for the pink PorkMark logo. Buy ham on the bone. Read the ingredient list. Quality ham should have pork, salt, sugar, spices. Excessive additives indicate industrial production. Research who actually owns the brand. Here is the bottom line. Primo and Hans are owned by Brazilian company JBS, whose executives confessed to bribing politicians and whose company was caught twice by Australian regulators for misleading labelling. Don and KR Castlemaine are owned by British company George Weston Foods. KR Castlemaine was caught for misleading free-range claims. Coles and Woolworths branded ham often contains less than 20% Australian ingredients while displaying the kangaroo logo. 75% of all ham sold in Australia is made from imported pork. The Victorian Farmers Federation has publicly accused supermarkets of refusing to prove their imports meet the same welfare standards they demand from Australian farmers. Every time you buy from an Australian-owned producer using Australian pork, you support local farmers and keep profits in Australian communities. If this video helped you, hit the like button, share it with your family and friends, and subscribe to Crisis Report Aussie. Ring that notification bell, drop a comment and tell me what ham brand you have discovered is not what it seems. I read every single comment. And remember, if you want that simple guide to take with you to the supermarket, check the pinned comment. but do it now because I honestly do not know how much longer I can keep it available. Your family deserves real ham, made from real Australian pork by real Australian companies, not products from corporations with documented histories of deception. Together, we are going to hold these companies accountable. I will see you in the next one.